The stars burned cold and distant in the void, their light swallowed by the vast, unyielding darkness of space. On the observation deck of the orbital station Elysium, Captain Marcus Hale stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his sharp blue eyes scanning the endless expanse. The station hummed softly around him, a symphony of life and machinery, but Marcus felt none of its comfort. His mind was elsewhere, replaying the cryptic transmission that had arrived just hours ago. It had been brief, fragmented, and utterly alien. The words, if they could even be called that, were guttural, almost mechanical, and they had sent a chill down his spine. Behind him, the door hissed open, and the sharp click of boots on metal announced the arrival of Dr. Elena Vasquez. She was a slight woman, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun, her lab coat pristine despite the chaos of the past few hours. Her presence was a stark contrast to Marcus's rugged, battle-worn demeanor. She carried a tablet in one hand, her fingers tapping rapidly across its surface. "Captain," she said, her voice calm but laced with urgency. "The data from the transmission is troubling. It's not just a message. It's a warning." Marcus turned to face her, his jaw tightening. "A warning about what?" Elena hesitated, her dark eyes flickering with unease. "We're not entirely sure. The language is unlike anything we've encountered before. But there's a pattern, a repetition of symbols that could indicate an impending threat. And the source? It's moving fast. Too fast." Marcus frowned, his mind racing. The Elysium was Earth's last line of defense, a fortress in the sky designed to protect humanity from the unknown. But this was something else, something beyond their understanding. Before he could respond, the station's alarms blared to life, a deafening wail that echoed through the corridors. The lights flickered, casting the room in a harsh, strobing glow. Marcus's hand instinctively went to the sidearm at his hip, his muscles tensing. "Report!" he barked into his comm unit. The voice that came through was panicked, barely coherent. "Captain, we've got incoming. Multiple signatures. Huge. They're not responding to hails, and they're closing fast." Marcus exchanged a glance with Elena, his heart pounding in his chest. "Get to the lab," he ordered. "Figure out what we're dealing with. I'll handle the defenses." Elena nodded, her face pale but determined. She turned and hurried out of the room, her lab coat billowing behind her. Marcus watched her go for a moment, then strode toward the command center, his mind already shifting into battle mode. The command center was a hive of activity, officers shouting over each other as they scrambled to make sense of the situation. The main display screen showed a cluster of red dots moving steadily closer, their trajectory unmistakable. They were heading straight for Earth. "Status," Marcus demanded as he took his place at the center of the room. "Shields at maximum, weapons armed and ready," came the reply. "But Captain, these things are massive. We've never seen anything like them." Marcus clenched his fists, his mind racing. The Elysium was powerful, but it was just one station. If these things were as big as they looked, they'd need more than just firepower to stop them. "Open a channel to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them we've got hostiles inbound. We need reinforcements now." The officer nodded and turned to comply, but before he could, the screen lit up with a blinding flash. The station shuddered violently, throwing everyone off balance. Marcus grabbed the edge of the console to steady himself, his eyes fixed on the screen. "What the hell was that?" he shouted. "Direct hit on the outer hull," someone yelled. "Shields are down to 60%. Marcus cursed under his breath. "Return fire. Target the lead ship." The Elysium's weapons roared to life, sending a barrage of plasma bolts streaking through the void. The shots struck the lead ship, but to Marcus's horror, they seemed to have no effect. The alien vessel continued its advance, undeterred. "Captain," Elena's voice crackled over the comm. "I've analyzed the transmission. These things, they're not just ships. They're alive. They're some kind of organic machines, and they're here to destroy us." Marcus felt a cold knot of dread form in his stomach. "What do you mean, organic machines?" I mean, they're not just piloted by aliens, they are aliens. They're a hive mind, a single consciousness spread across multiple bodies. And they're unstoppable. Marcus swallowed hard, his mind racing. If Elena was right, then they were facing something far worse than they'd imagined. These weren't just invaders, they were a plague, a force of nature that couldn't be reasoned with or bargained with. "Captain!" another officer shouted. "They're breaking through the outer defenses. We can't hold them off." Marcus gritted his teeth, his mind made up. "Evacuate the station," he ordered. "Get everyone to the escape pods. Now." The officers hesitated, their faces pale with fear. "But Captain, what about you?" Marcus's expression hardened. "I'll stay behind and buy you some time. Now go." The officers scrambled to obey, their movements frantic as they ushered the crew toward the escape pods. Marcus watched them go, his heart heavy but his resolve unshaken. He turned back to the console, his fingers flying across the controls. If he was going down, he was taking as many of these things with him as he could. As the last of the crew evacuated, Marcus activated the station's self-destruct sequence. The countdown began, the numbers ticking down with agonizing slowness. He took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the screen as the alien ships closed in. "This is Captain Marcus Hale of the Elysium," he said into the comm, his voice steady. "To anyone who can hear this, we're not going down without a fight." The screen went white as the station exploded, a blinding flash of light that consumed everything in its path. For a moment there was silence. Then, as the light faded, the alien ships emerged from the debris, their massive forms unscathed. But Marcus's sacrifice had not been in vain. The explosion had bought Earth precious time. Time to prepare, to rally their forces, to fight back. And as the alien fleet continued its relentless advance, humanity's resolve only grew stronger. They would not go quietly into the night. They would fight. They would survive. And they would win. The debris from the Elysium's destruction drifted silently in the void, a grim testament to humanity's first encounter with the Zelthari. On Earth, the mood was one of grim determination. The loss of the orbital station had been a devastating blow, but it had also revealed a critical weakness in the alien invaders. Dr. Elena Vasquez had survived the evacuation, her mind racing with the implications of her discovery. The Zelthari were not just a fleet of ships, they were a hive mind, a single consciousness spread across countless bodies. And if that consciousness could be disrupted, the entire fleet could be crippled. Elena stood in the dimly lit war room of Earth Command, her fingers tracing the lines of data on her tablet. The room was a stark contrast to the chaos of the Elysium's final moments. Here, everything was orderly, precise, and cold. The faces around the table were grim, their eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed the Zelthari fleet's relentless advance. General Adissa Okoye, the head of Earth's military forces, leaned forward, his deep voice cutting through the tension. "Dr. Vasquez, you're certain about this? If we target their nexus, we can stop them." Elena nodded, her dark eyes meeting his. "As certain as I can be. The Zelthari operate as a single entity. Their ships, their weapons, their tactics, all of it is controlled by a central nexus. If we can disrupt that, we can throw their entire fleet into chaos." "And how do you propose we do that?" asked Colonel Sarah Mitchell, her sharp features etched with skepticism. "Their flagship is a fortress. We'd need an army to get close to it, let alone infiltrate it." Elena hesitated, her mind racing. She had been working on a plan, but it was risky, almost suicidal. "We don't need an army," she said finally. "We need a small, elite team. A team that can slip past their defenses and deliver a virus directly to the nexus." The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling over them like a shroud. General Okoye was the first to speak. "You're talking about a suicide mission." "Not necessarily," Elena replied, her voice steady. "If we can get in and out quickly, there's a chance we could survive. But even if we don't, the payoff would be worth it. We could end this war before it even begins." The general studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded. "Very well. Assemble your team. You'll have whatever resources you need. Elena felt a surge of relief, but it was short-lived. The task ahead was daunting, and the stakes couldn't be higher. She left the war room and made her way to the barracks, her mind already working through the logistics of the mission. She would need soldiers, experienced, fearless, and willing to risk everything. And she would need someone to lead them. She found Captain Jackson Reed in the training gym, his muscular frame glistening with sweat as he pounded a heavy bag with relentless precision. Jackson was a veteran of countless battles, his body a map of scars and his mind a fortress of discipline. He was also one of the few people Elena trusted implicitly. "Jackson," she called, her voice cutting through the rhythmic thud of his fists. "I need your help." He stopped mid-punch, turning to face her with a raised eyebrow. "This about the aliens?" Elena nodded. "We've got a plan, but it's going to be dangerous." Jackson grinned, a flash of white teeth against his dark skin. "When isn't it? What's the mission?" Elena explained quickly, outlining the plan to infiltrate the Zeltheri flagship and deliver the virus. Jackson listened in silence, his expression growing more serious with each word. When she finished, he nodded. "I'm in. Who else are you taking?" "I've got a few names in mind," Elena said. "But I need the best. People who can handle the pressure." Jackson nodded again. "Leave it to me. I'll get the team together." By the end of the day, the team was assembled. In addition to Jackson, there was Lieutenant Mei Chun, a brilliant engineer with a knack for improvisation. Sergeant Darius Kane, a grizzled veteran with a reputation for getting the job done no matter the cost. And Private Ava Torres, a young but fiercely determined soldier with a talent for stealth. Together, they represented humanity's best hope for survival. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Elena worked tirelessly to refine the virus, ensuring it would be effective against the Zeltheri's unique biology. The team trained relentlessly, honing their skills and rehearsing the mission until they could execute it in their sleep. And all the while, the Zeltheri fleet drew closer, their ominous presence a constant reminder of what was at stake. Finally, the day of the mission arrived. The team gathered in the hangar bay, their faces set with determination. Elena stood before them, her heart pounding in her chest. "This is it," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "We're about to do something no one else has ever done. We're going to strike at the heart of the Zeltheri and show them that humanity isn't so easily defeated." They moved quickly, following the map Elena had pieced together from the data she had gathered. The nexus was deep within the ship, protected by layers of defenses. But the team was prepared. They slipped past guards, disabled security systems, and navigated the twisting corridors with precision. But before she could finish, the door began to open. The team froze, their weapons raised as a figure emerged from the chamber. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. A towering, insectoid creature with glowing eyes and a body covered in chitinous armor. It moved with a fluid, almost graceful motion, its gaze fixed on Elena. "You are persistent," it hissed, its voice a guttural rasp that sent shivers down their spines. "But you cannot stop us. We are inevitable." Jackson stepped forward, his weapon trained on the creature. "We'll see about that." The creature lunged, its movements blindingly fast. Jackson fired, the shots ricocheting off its armor. The team sprang into action, their training and instincts taking over. May deployed a series of EMP grenades, disrupting the creature's systems. Darius and Ava provided covering fire, their shots forcing the creature back. And Elena worked frantically to complete the virus upload, her fingers flying across the device. Finally, the device beeped, signaling that the virus had been successfully delivered. The creature let out a deafening roar, its body convulsing as the virus took hold. The walls of the chamber began to tremble, the bioluminescent glow flickering and fading. "We need to go," Elena shouted, her voice barely audible over the chaos. The team turned and ran, their footsteps echoing through the twisting corridors. Behind them, the flagship began to collapse, its organic systems failing as the virus spread. They reached the shuttle just as the ship's core went critical, the explosion lighting up the void like a supernova. As the shuttle sped away, The team watched in stunned silence as the Zelthari fleet fell into disarray, their ships drifting aimlessly without the guidance of the hive mind. They had done it. They had struck a blow against the invaders and given humanity a fighting chance. But as Elena looked out at the stars, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The Zelthari were a formidable enemy, and they would not be defeated so easily. The war was far from over, and humanity would need to be ready. The shuttle streaked through the void, its engines roaring as it put distance between itself and the collapsing Zelthari flagship. Inside, the team sat in stunned silence, their bodies bruised and battered but their spirits unbroken. Dr. Elena Vasquez stared out the viewport, her mind racing as she processed what they had just accomplished. The virus had worked. The hive mind was disrupted, and the alien fleet was in disarray. But as the adrenaline began to fade, a gnawing unease settled in her chest. This wasn't over. Not yet. Captain Jackson Reed broke the silence, his voice low but steady. We did it. We actually did it. Elena turned to him, her dark eyes reflecting the dim light of the shuttle's interior. For now. But the Zelthari aren't going to just disappear. They'll regroup. They'll adapt. And when they do, they'll come back stronger. Jackson nodded, his expression grim. Then we'll be ready. We've got the data from the flagship. We know how they operate now. We can use that to our advantage. Elena sighed, running a hand through her disheveled hair. It's not that simple. Their technology is light years ahead of ours. Even with the data, it'll take time to reverse engineer it. Time we might not have. Elena spent long hours in the lab, her mind consumed by the task at hand. She worked tirelessly, her fingers flying across holographic displays as she analyzed the alien systems. The Zelthari's technology was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, a seamless blend of organic and mechanical components. But as she delved deeper, she began to see patterns, weaknesses that could be exploited. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the lab was bathed in the soft glow of artificial light, Elena made a breakthrough. She called the team together, her voice tinged with excitement. I found something, a way to enhance the virus. If we can modify it, we can use it to not just disrupt the hive mind, but destroy it. Jackson leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Destroy it? How? Elena gestured to the holographic display, where a complex web of data shimmered in the air. The hive mind is like a network. Each ship, each drone is a node. The virus we used before just disrupted the connections between the nodes. But if we can modify it to target the nodes themselves, we can take the entire network down. May frowned, her brow furrowed in thought. That's risky. If we mess this up, we could end up making them stronger. I know, Elena admitted, but it's our best shot. If we can take out the hive mind completely, we can end this war. The team exchanged glances, their faces reflecting the weight of the decision. Finally, Jackson nodded. Let's do it. But we need to be careful. One wrong move and we're toast. Elena smiled, a flicker of hope igniting in her chest. We'll get it right. We have to. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Elena and her team worked around the clock, refining the virus and testing it in simulated environments. The pressure was immense, but they pushed through, driven by the knowledge that the fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. Finally, the day came. The modified virus was ready, and the team prepared to deploy it. The plan was simple. Infiltrate the Zelthari fleet, deliver the virus to the central nexus, and let it do its work. But simple didn't mean easy. The fleet was heavily guarded, and the team would have to navigate a gauntlet of defenses to reach their target. As they boarded the shuttle, Elena felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it, the moment of truth. The team exchanged nods, their faces set with determination. They knew the risks, they knew the stakes, and they were ready. The shuttle launched into the void, its engines roaring as it streaked toward the Zelthari fleet. The journey was tense, the team's nerves stretched to the breaking point, but they held firm, their focus unwavering. As they approached the fleet, the shuttle's cloaking device engaged, rendering it invisible to the alien sensors. They slipped past the outer defenses, their movements precise and deliberate. The flagship loomed ahead, its massive form a stark reminder of the challenge they faced. The team disembarked, their movements swift and silent. They navigated the twisting corridors of the flagship, their training and instincts guiding them. Finally, they reached the Nexus chamber, the heart of the hive mind. Elena stepped forward, her hands trembling as she inserted the device containing the virus into the port. The device whirred to life, its screen flashing as it interfaced with the alien systems. The team held their breath, their eyes fixed on the display. Finally, the device beeped, signaling that the virus had been successfully delivered. The walls of the chamber began to tremble, the bioluminescent glow flickering and fading. The hive mind was collapsing. "We need to go," Elena shouted, her voice barely audible over the chaos. The team turned and ran, their footsteps echoing through the twisting corridors. Behind them, the flagship began to collapse, its organic systems failing as the virus spread. They reached the shuttle just as the ship's core went critical, the explosion lighting up the void like a supernova. As the shuttle sped away, the team watched in stunned silence as the Zelthari fleet fell into disarray, their ships drifting aimlessly without the guidance of the hive mind. They had done it. They had struck a blow against the invaders and given humanity a fighting chance. But as Elena looked out at the stars, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The Zelthari were a formidable enemy, and they would not be defeated so easily. The war was far from over, and humanity would need to be ready.